There are people out here who are claiming a movie telling the story of the King of Pop is nothing but a pile of slop, and they are right. It's not as good as a movie, nor is it an artistic parallel, and that despite being one of the most famous people on earth, fans still carry questions about. So I aim to answer this from a filmmaker's perspective to how did we get here, what is this movie, and why, outside of how good it is, does it feel like it missed the mark? One of the biggest problems in the world of biographical movies, both documentary and non-documentary, is that over the years there have been more involvement by the estates of the subject or the subject themselves. It has become a whole new way to reframe a legacy, especially if you've done something to complicate it along the way. Michael Jackson joins a long line of artists whose movies work like this, including Elton John, Elvis, Queen, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, and others. The easiest way to identify it is by looking at the producer credits and see how many people tied to the person are listed there. So for Michael, we have John Branca, played by Miles Teller in the movie, 4 living siblings of the Jackson 5, sister LaToya, son Prince, and John McClane, who has 6 producing credits, all for Michael Jackson projects and nothing else. Graham King appears to be the day-by-day producer, and a great choice since he produced Bohemian Rhapsody, which was the all-time highest-grossing music biopic. All that to be said, the team in charge was not going to go and disparage Michael in any way, and it shows in the movie. Another thing that is important to know is that this movie was delayed and massively reshot because of the terms of a previous settlement. Apparently, the original script and first cut of the movie was a traditional biopic that featured a second half dedicated to abuse allegations and the legal fallout from it. And all that had to be scrapped because the previous settlement with a reported victim of Michael's included a clause that the story could never be part of a movie or show. This led to the whole movie being reworked, and now it plays more like a part 1 as opposed to a soup to nuts biopic. In this regard, I feel bad casting any particular decisions or choices on people like director Antoine Fuqua, because to create something that works after having half of it end up on the cutting room floor is a multiplier of difficulty on a movie that was already going to be difficult. All that being said, if I was one of the most acclaimed artists of all time, I would want a film that was of a similar quality to the music I made. The problem is that it's impossible to do this without conflict, and this movie, more than any other biopic, seems allergic to any characters having any faults or character traits. I think a lot about Sacha Baron Cohen speaking about Bohemian Rhapsody when he was supposed to play Freddie Mercury, and one of the members of Queen said it would be the greatest midpoint in movie history because it would be Freddie's death. Sasha was confused because he figured Freddie would be the ending, before being told the second half was all about the success they had post-Freddie. And it was at that moment he realized Queen did not understand what the story of the movie would have to be. When the focus shifts from it being a movie of quality, the next best thing it can be is a movie that makes money. And frankly, anything they released that had the music of Michael Jackson was going to make some amount of money. But you'll still need to put in the effort to get the biggest music biopic, which is, I assume, the goal. Which leads in part to what we got here. A collection of scenes populated by people we know showing the beats of a famous person's life and never touching on why they were, what they cared about, or how they managed to do what they did. The movie runs from the Jackson 5 to the release of Bad, and what I think most people think about is 2 things. The first is that Michael was a transcendent talent and clearly touched in a way to have such abilities from such a young age. The second thing I feel is known publicly is what an absolute terror Joe Jackson was to the children. If anyone played a villain in Michael, it is certainly Joe, played exceptionally by Colman Domingo. What's wild is that the makeup and hairstyling can look so exaggerated if you didn't know what Joe Jackson looked like. It's not like they stray from some of the worst traits. The control, the perfectionism, the physical and mental abuse are all shown in the film. But they all get sanitized under this veneer that having 5 of your children as producers will give a man. There is really only one scene that shows Joe beating Michael, and it happens early in the movie. But for the couple minutes leading up to it, you can see the fear in the faces of the children. But it cuts away, showing everyone else internalizing this and not Michael. Now believe me, I'm not looking forward to seeing a child in danger, but if you don't focus on Michael experiencing it and Joe perpetrating it, you are not giving the character of Michael in the movie sympathy of the audience when he overcomes it to whatever degree you believe he does. It's sad, but there is a belief by some that extremely hard fathers lead to success later. And if we got a Tiger Woods movie in the future, I imagine they'll hammer that point home. All I'm saying is that a common refrain from any criticism of Michael Jackson from his fans will be, well, look at his father. I don't want to see it, but the reason Michael is who he is not because Jermaine saw him get whipped by Joe. It was because Joe whipped Michael in all of them. There is not enough conflict for Joe not to be one of the biggest monsters in film history. It's the only way this works. This leads into the paradox that is Michael Jackson, and such a perplexing character when you don't answer anything about him. I can't find you people who will swear with absolute certainty that Michael Jackson did unspeakable things to children, and people who will contend that there is zero evidence of anything criminal. There are various family members who speak to the constant and persistent violence that followed Joe, and just as many who will say he was tough but not a monster. This is constant with Michael, and even though he was one of the most famous people in the world for a stretch of time, no one seems to be more diametric to his own truth. This movie took those ideas and mistook them for a way to keep things mysterious. You have to answer these questions if you're going to tell a story that feels definitive, because at some point, in part 2 I assume, you will have to answer for why he became so different, and to do it without a baseline for who he is. This life is a metamorphosis. He changes drastically in appearance and language and cognition. It would be one thing if this movie showed anything other than moments of quiet where he acts like a sweet, gentle boy and electric performances. Nothing about what makes Michael special is really explored here, and it's really puzzling. There is a light moment when Michael is recording with Berry Gordy for the first time, and he keeps dancing while he's singing, and it's affecting the recording. They go again. He tries to be better, but still struggles. It's one of the few moments that shows him in the booth working on it, and it feels like it could have been anything else. I mean, for example, there's amazing audio of Michael layering his vocals on Thriller, and it gives you an entirely different appreciation for the song you've heard 1,000 times. He has a talent married with surgical precision and otherworldly control, and to hear him sing a small section of a background vocal does more for him than anything in the movie. They could have shown anything about making Thriller other than Quincy Jones was there. What about Michael, the ruthless businessman, buying the masters of the Beatles? That was a moment where Paul McCartney and Michael were friends, and Michael takes his advice and goes and stabs Paul in the back. That would have been interesting, but instead we have Michael and Bubbles playing Twister. Despite all the problems, this film does do several things exceptionally well. First off, Jaafar Jackson is the best possible outcome for casting Michael, and it really is crazy that they pulled this off. Top of your mind right now, who do you have to play Michael Jackson? Any actor, big name, small name, theater star, it's nearly impossible to consider without massive makeup and prosthetics. To have a nephew of Michael have this much dog in him is unheard of. You would have the same success rate pulling people singing karaoke to perform the national anthem at the Super Bowl. Now, I wouldn't say that his acting talent is strong enough to do anything serious heavy lifting, but there is a whimsical effervescence that came with Michael that Jaafar has so naturally that some other actor came in, I would be worried about it feeling like an impersonation of Michael instead of a natural stance. It's not just looking like Michael, but the dancing moves are sensational, the singing on point. You can hear a little bit of Michael in the live performances layered with Jaafar, but there is no shade to Jaafar. There are only a small number of people in the history of the world who could sing like his uncle. Likewise, Juliano Valdi is incredible for young Michael when he was in the Jackson 5. I explained that the kids early in the movie carry the fear of Joe, and Juliano's ability to show that was nearly as impressive as nailing the performance as Michael. I also mentioned how Michael changes over his life, and the subtle differences in performances between Juliana and Jaafar does a great job subtly foreshadowing that, because in real life there was a difference between Michael solo and Michael with his brothers. The problem is that there are plenty of good actors and plenty of people who could do something special that have nothing to work with. I mentioned Miles Teller playing John Branca, who is the lawyer in charge of Michael's estate with John McClane, and that character couldn't be more milquetoast. A man with an opinion that only benefits Michael and no discernible characteristics or flaws. Miles was in The Offer, where he played a Hollywood producer. He could do the same basic thing here, but doesn't get the chance. Likewise, the appearances of some people are for cheap pop of recognition, and others are nowhere to be found. There is no mention of Janet, who many say was the closest family member to Michael. One last bright spot, anything relating to a performance is great in this movie, and does a great job of showing you everything you need to see, as well as honorably recreate some of Michael's well-known moments. Antoine Fuqua had a lifetime as a music video director in his early career, so I'm sure that experience helped make this footage sing the way it did. Everything felt very authentic to a Michael Jackson performance. To bring it all around, it feels like a lazy attempt to throw something out there and hope that we all start listening to Thriller more. There's no reason for why anything happens when it does, other than following a timeline. South Park creators Matt Stone and Trey Parker describe that what makes an engaging script by thinking of scenes as a connective, and they use the words therefore and but. So we have this world, but this happens. Therefore, this happens. It's an easy way to tell the story. And they say the worst thing is the word then. This movie is a run-on then movie. This happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. It has no opinion on anything and no perspective to explain why things happen. You can't tell me who is Jermaine and who is Tito other than recognizing them. They have no discernible personalities. The cinematic language almost has no personality either, outside of the performances, which seemed to faithfully recreate the moments that we know from TV. Every moment with no music is played for flat lighting and basic composition. There are times where it appears they are working off a sitcom handbook for editing because it follows a similar structure as far as cutting within a scene. There are times where it felt more like a Hallmark movie than a major blockbuster. The problem is the point of view, or lack thereof. Social Network, I, Tonya, there can be a biopic that shows layers and complexities within a person and have a distinct visual language, but the movie doesn't care to do that. Here's the thing, though. No one cares. People who have been locked in with Michael Jackson this whole time and are bought in on every reason Michael has ever gotten a bum rap, they want to see Michael perform the things they know, and they want to see it opening weekend and probably several times after that. And they really don't care if the movie is any good because it's simple fan service. To them, a bad movie about Michael is a good movie because it has Michael. Critics aren't going to like it because on the merits the movie isn't good, and their critics are going to call him like they see him. The unknown middle is everyone in between, and if this movie is going to be a runaway success, it will require a lot of people from that group to see the movie too. And this is where the differences between fans and critics can sway people. Because the random person who likes Michael fine, knows the hits, might decide whether or not to go depending on other people's opinions. Despite the excitement from the fans for a huge opening weekend, I do wonder if this will end up being what they want in the end. At a certain point, watching Michael on YouTube is going to be the way most people prefer to watch Thriller. And 5 to 10 years from now, this movie will probably be largely forgotten like many biopics are. Every time Michael is in the national conversation, it always brings new allegations or evidence against him. And if they decide to have a second movie that focuses on the controversy and they do it in a way that audiences disagree with, it could really hurt the Jackson legacy. His hardcore supporters are never going anywhere, and there are a lot of them. But the casual Jackson fan is ready to bail if the winds get rough. And I personally never want to be in the position where I'm betting against tomorrow's headline. Let's moonwalk our way into the leaderboard. What's crazy about this movie is that there are some parts that work out exceptionally well. Jaafar Jackson should not work, but he does. He is Michael, as close as we are ever going to get in a movie at least. Colman Domingo is fantastic as ever, and we have never had a musical biopic with this many amazing songs in it. The only thing that could potentially beat it are the 4 Beatles movies coming out in the future, and funny enough, the Jackson estate once owned that music too. The problem is everything else. If I had to give Michael a rating, I would give it a 6.4. Your personal love for Michael Jackson is going to be the barometer on how much you will enjoy this movie. How often you go to the movies might be the other, because if you only go for an event movie like Michael, you will probably enjoy it fine. The lack of plot, character development, and motivation is the shoddy foundation that the house is built on, and makes this something to marvel at once, but avoid it in the future because it's going to end very badly. There are so many actors in this film with nothing to do, and the general lack of any kind of struggle makes it boring if you start paying attention between the music. Imagining what a movie like this will become in part 2 makes me very nervous, especially considering that, much like Wicked, all the best songs are in the first part. Thank you so much for watching. I have lots of stuff in the queue waiting for you, but next week I'll be back here with The Devil Wears Prada 2. Until then, have a great day, everybody.